we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank Valentina, who is going to be very active in the chat with everyone here today. And we appreciate everyone here today. Valentina, do you want to say hello for folks who are just tuning in?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be chatting with you in the chat field. So chat away and I'll interact. Can't wait to hear from you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I have the honor of introducing Dr. Laura Beth Escalante, who's going to give us a fantastic webinar today. Her background is in ESL, in bilingual, in dual language education. She's worked in inner cities to rural districts to the university level. In fact, she's worked all around the world. So we are honored to have her sharing with us today. I've held up her book several times in my training to show people where I'm getting this learning from. And so I'm excited that she's going to share some of it with you today. Dr. Escalante, thank you for being here. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please, again, as Carol just mentioned, will you please leave any comments, questions, ideas? I'm definitely not the fountain of knowledge. I know that I like to remind myself and remind teachers that, and parents, that you are the best resource for others. So please, if anything sparks interest in you or it makes you think of something else that might work even better, please share those in the comments because I know that we can all benefit from each other's ideas. And I also just want to say thank you to everyone from all over. I know we've said thank you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Muchas gracias. Some of you are even tuning in from overseas. This is just a little housekeeping. So Carol and Valentina were kind enough to put this together just to make sure everyone's aware that this session is being recorded. So if someone's not able to watch it, they'll be able to watch it later. Or if you want to rewatch it or share it with someone. So just be aware that even your comments where you're in the chat room will be recorded. And even if you if you are advanced enough to know how to send a private chat, those are also being recorded. So just be aware of that. And the participants are muted, so I can't hear you, which is very challenging for someone who's usually in a room full of warm bodies and active participants. So that is challenging for me, but just know that you are muted, but feel free to use the chat feature. And if we have any technical difficulties, we will resume on the silenceeducation.com tab with webinars. So don't panic, anyone, because technology is sometimes throwing us some challenges, as you know. And then go ahead and please tag us if you want to upload any Twitter chats on the Silence Ed chat or Silence_ed. So here we go. We're going to talk about cultivating relationships with an online classroom community, but also borrowing from all of the wonderful experiences and routines you've already started. You had already started all year long in your classroom and in your home. This is my current cloffice situation. One of my favorite new vocabulary words is cloffice. That's also known as a closet office. So a little play on those words, a little combination there for you. This is my current cloffice situation. I have 3 kids and there are 2 of them in this picture working in my cloffice. It's a very small space. I'm grateful to have it, but it was kind of an afterthought. And so we have a little, that's about a 4x4 foot space. Is anyone else working in a really small space? I really don't spend much time in here normally in my pre-pandemic life. I really just store a lot of resources. You can see side lids and other great resources up here and a big hot mess probably up here that I'm always needing to declutter. So I usually don't spend a lot of time in here, but because we've been on quarantine, I have been in here more and my kids have really gravitated to this space. It must just feel like a nice learning space. So I try to just focus on the positive. So that's what we're going to do today, everybody. So I'm going to look for the ABCs and the teacher in me just can't help myself because I have a little ABC here for you. Okay. So first, affirm the positive. And in my personal life right now, I'm also a quarantine parent. So I have affirming the positive, even though my kids are all up in my space, that means they can't stand to be away from me. They want to be near me. So that's a positive. That's a real positive. I'm building on their strengths. They already pretty much know what to do with their schoolwork. And so you can see my son down there hard at work. I think he's on math right now in that picture. My daughter's just really excited to be touching my computer because I don't allow that to happen very frequently. So she's thrilled. She wants to type out a letter to her cousin on the computer screen probably. And then C is just keep cultivating those relationships. So I don't normally have a relationship with my kids in my office. It's usually just my personal space in here. And I honestly just usually come in here after hours, as far as like after they're asleep or before they wake up. I get a little time in here. I organize, I get ready for my conferences or my coaching or my trainings. But it's a little bit different now, as it is for many of you. So this is just to quote my son. Okay, here's my son's quote. Hold on a minute, Mom. Let me unmute you. And yes, this was a live conversation. I was not Zooming with my own son. He just picked up on some of the new vocabulary, as in unmute or mute. And he's probably heard me say it many times. Oh, I forgot to unmute myself. Oh, will you please mute yourself? I can hear your background noise. So he gravitated to that new vocabulary word. So to that vein, I want to encourage you to take notes during this time. The other day, my son, he's almost 8, he went and he asked me, when did this whole thing start? You know, when we couldn't go to classes, we couldn't go out. And I said, well, for us, it was about March 15th. So he went back in his journal and he marked every day since March 15th in his Dictado journal. Shout out to Dr. Lara, okay, Dictado. She illuminated me to the joys of Dictado. So he marked in every page of his Dictado journal, coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. And he said, someday, Mom, we might be glad we know this. We might be glad we remembered when this happened. Because it's true, you know, time goes by so quickly. And let's just focus on the positives and keep fun notes. If you haven't done so yet, I do want to highly encourage you to keep a journal. I'm going to show you a little visual just on the screen here. This is my little teacher journal that I've kept for years. And I just write down funny things kids say. And then as a quarantine parent, how many of you are quarantine parents? Feel free to write that in the chat. I started a funny one of my own kids, and I just used a journal, I think that a sweet school district had given me, and I started writing down their funny quotes. So I highly encourage you to do that. You'll be glad you have that, and it might even make you laugh later. I know it has for me. Here's our Zoom meeting with video. You can see I actually worked on my hair and makeup a little bit. You only know that if you see me in real life, as in real non-quarantine life, where I usually just, you know, don't go to the trouble. So you have the joy of being audio only, and this includes webinars. So please join us for all the webinars coming up. You don't have to worry about fixing your hair or makeup. So we're going to launch into our idea of what motivates you. And all of these ideas come from, not all of them, some of these ideas come from my book called Motivating ELLs. Here's my little shout out to that. And my big passion is getting those students excited about learning. And here are some just things I want you to think about for yourself. What are some things that are interests that you enjoy, maybe some pastimes you're enjoying, maybe you're getting to enjoy them a little bit more now that you're home. I know I've had several teacher friends say, you know what, I get outside more often than I ever would if I was in school from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. every day. So focusing on the positive, what are some things that motivate you? Here's something that motivates me. I do love gardening. This is one of my little seedlings coming in, but you can see the seed is still stuck on the leaf. It's holding on for dear life. It doesn't want to give it up. I also love reading a good book. It has to really catch my attention, but if I get into a good book, I really, really enjoy it. I also really enjoy my screen porch, and it does not usually look this clean, but I snapped a picture because I was really excited to clean it off. So these are things you might say that I enjoy by myself. But if I really think through those, small pleasures in life, what is the actual motivation? Why am I motivated, really truly motivated to garden? Why am I truly motivated to read or clean off my porch? Well, actually, I love sharing my plants with friends. Sadly, I don't have beautiful sunflowers like this yet. This picture was from last summer. But when the plants come in, my zinnias, my sunflowers, my Greg's Mist, my mint, when it all comes in beautifully, oh man, do I love taking a friend out in the garden or her kids maybe, and I just say, let's cut some flowers and throw them in a jar. I have a big collection of random yogurt containers and old, as you can see, I think that was a marinara jar there. So I love to cut them and just say, you know what, take these home with, I hope these bring you some joy on your table. I love reading, but what I really love is sharing what I'm reading with other people. So these are my 2 boys. And man, nothing gets to a mama's heart like seeing your older kid read to your younger kid. And that's what's starting to happen these days. So sharing with them the books that brought me joy as a kid, sharing books I'm reading now with other friends. I just recently found out that some of the other consultants at Seidlitz read Educated. I can't wait to talk to them about that book. It was a real page turner. And then my porch. I love having people out on my porch. And usually I have people over that they don't really care if it's super clean, but that does motivate me to clean it. And just so you know, that was a pre-quarantine party we had, but I love having potlucks and just say, bring whatever, let's all meet on the porch and enjoy some time together. So think about what really motivates you. What's the common denominator that you see in all these pictures? You know, first I showed you the pictures where there were no people in them, right? But then I showed you the pictures where there were many people in them. So what really motivates humans are relationships. And it might be relationships with your children. It might be relationships with your special, you know, your special someone. It might be relationships with your family or friends or students, neighbors. It could even be relationships with your pets. We love our pets, right? I never thought I'd be a crazy cat lady. Now we have 2 cats that we rescued from the barn. So the common denominator in all of that motivates humans are relationships. So this goes back to my book. This is actually the 3rd part of my book, which is the C. There is an ABC acronym in there as well. And the C is Cultivating Relationships. And if you want to know more about that, that's on page 68. If you happen to have the book, some of you probably do. And let's jump to our content objectives. So we're going to identify just 5 really concrete ways in which we can maintain and continue to cultivate relationships with our online classroom community. And then at the end, I'll remind you about the language objective, but I'm going to ask you to write or just reflect either on your own, or you're welcome to do it in the chat to encourage other people. I'm going to ask you to write about one activity that you will try or maybe try again with your students. Maybe you had a success before in the classroom, or maybe during distance learning, you've already had a success. And maybe you want to build on that success, something you've already tried, but you want to try again. Or maybe you want to go outside your comfort zone and try something new. And here's a sentence stem we can use if you'd like to use some variation of this sentence stem. In order to cultivate or maintain relationships, I would like to try. So you can be thinking about that as we go through these 5 ideas. Here are our key vocabulary words. Maintain and cultivate. Now, what do I mean by that? Everyone has a different, probably working definition in their head, but I'm going to use my plant reference. And this is cultivating. Cultivating is when something's just getting started. For some of you, you might be new to gardening and you're getting really familiar with this concept. I'm pretty good at killing plants, but I've kind of gotten over the fear of killing plants because it's just going to happen. If you're gardening, you're going to end up killing some plants, some more than, you know, most people. So this is my little aloe vera plant that I just recently transplanted. So what it means to cultivate this little guy is to dig deep, to prep the soil. Thankfully, I have a father who's a master gardener who lives next door. So he gave me some great compost to get in there. Prep the soil, give it a good start, mulch around it, give it that cozy feel, it's ready to grow, water it frequently, be patient with it. It's not going to grow overnight. It's going to take a while to get hold. There might be 1 out of my 10 plants that just doesn't make it, you know, and then I have to think of another way to go about it. Now, maintaining is a little bit different. These are my maintained, or these are the aloe vera plants I'm maintaining. So these are the ones that I have cultivated, I've babied, I've tried to water the right amount. I'm often guilty of overwatering just because that's one of my favorite joys in the garden is watering while drinking coffee. It's a great combination. So this is an aloe vera plant that, these are several actually that have bloomed, and then I can watch the hummingbirds come and they love aloe vera blooms. And it's a pretty easy plant to maintain actually. You pretty much just need to make sure it gets water and sun, and then maybe trim it off when the blooms are no longer providing nectar for our friends. And here are some ways I could describe it. Monitor, trim, enjoy. And this is a shout out to part of the book that is called Annotating the Objectives. So one of the silver linings for distance learning right now is that our students can see our objectives and they don't disappear. They can reference them whenever they need to. So I highly encourage you to look at those vocabulary words that are really going to help your students be successful when they're looking at the content objective. And I just chose 2, and I try to keep it pretty concrete and pretty visual. So make sure that you're adding visuals if you can, or just descriptions of the words, or ask students to do something with the objectives so that you know they know what the goal of the lesson is. And happy Earth Day, everyone. This is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So if you weren't on earlier before when I was just waxing on about Earth Day, I encourage you to take some deep breaths outside, if nothing else, get some oxygen, and just appreciate our beautiful Earth today. So going back to our words, here are our words: maintain and cultivate again. This is my brother, who also happens to be a math teacher and an ESL teacher, and he's living overseas right now in Qatar, or Qatar. either way you want to pronounce that. And here he is with his son, and he said, well, here's a new joy to our current situation. He's got his sweet little 2-year-old in his lap, and he is maintaining that relationship, and he's also cultivating new online relationships with his students. And one of the reasons that I wanted to give a shout out to my brother is he was one of the brave folks who had really not done too much distance learning or teaching, and he started posting videos, and they were very well received. So my number one idea for you is to just post a video. Some of you are thinking, this is so easy, I do this all the time. So you might be some of the participants who want to rethink how you do videos, or get really creative, like use some visuals, or show them something about yourself. Students love to learn about their teachers. So here is my friend Stacy. She is a teacher. She's a middle school teacher, and she was also very brave, and she posted this at the beginning of the distance learning time. And she said this was her first video. And so I wanted to really give a shout out to some of these newbies. I prefer human contact, you know, old habits die hard. I brought Tic Tacs if anybody needs virtual Tic Tacs, okay? I also brought my peppermint oil. I always offer teachers if you have a headache or you need some perking up. So I also prefer to be in person, but you know what? We're all learning, and we're all just trying to overcome the fear of trying things with distance learning. So here's a great example. So she was having so much fun, and I'm just going to show you a quick clip, and I'm going to mute it and just kind of narrate. She was talking about what her students can expect, just a simple, hey, here's what's going to be available online. Here's what I'd like you to try to do this week. Make sure you get outside, make sure you enjoy time with your family. And then she had her daughter come in and throw in a little bit of unexpected humor. She tosses her in the pool and her students didn't see that coming. And she said they laughed so hard, and she got such a great reaction that she was excited and thrilled. You just never know, right? And here's my brother. He's doing a great little attention getter for math. All of his students, here he is juggling, showing off one of his skills. Students love to learn about your hidden skills, your hidden talents. And then he goes into talking about the quadratic formula and the arc and equations, but it's all tied to his juggling. So you can use a video to grab your students' attentions, to help them get to know you better, to have them comment, invite them to do a video. And this is not a technical webinar, so I'm not going to walk you through all the steps of how to do that. There are others more qualified for that, but that's my first idea. So if you want to throw in the chat, what kind of video do you think would really help cultivate or maintain relationships with your students right now? And just, this is a reference to our 7 Steps book. I'm going to do a little quick shout out to that. So I have my 7 Steps book. Many of you are very familiar with this. This is called 7 Steps to a Language-Rich Interactive Classroom, also a Sidelets education resource. And the 5th step on there is to use visuals and vocabulary strategies that support your objectives. So as you can see, this is happening here with my brother. He's using some visuals. I mean, how many students are going to be impressed that he can juggle, right? And they're going to think, oh, juggling, right? Okay, the arc, and then the formula that goes with that. And then he goes on to teach them the steps. So number 2, the second idea I have for you is to assign accountability partners. And this actually came, I'm going to give a little shout out to my friend Tara in Colorado. She is a Spanish teacher, and we were talking about this the other day, and we thought, you know what? It would be so helpful if they had accountability partners. And I know most of us, even as adults, have experienced how helpful it is to have an accountability partner. How many of you have someone who you just say, you know what? I'm going to check in with that person. I am trying to memorize scriptures, so I'm going to have an accountability partner with my friend Carly. We can check in with each other and see how we're doing. My sister is an amazing organizer and declutterer, and she just maintains her house so well. So I'm going to check in with her, and we're going to hold each other accountable for doing that. So the same goes for students and kids in general. They need accountability partners. They don't have to be students in their own classroom. One of the other little perks of having online learning is they might have an accountability partner who lives in the house with them. They might have an accountability partner who is in another class at the same school, and they can work online or whatever platform works for them. But you can hold them accountable, and they can be interacting with each other on a regular basis. Here are some of my accountability partners. A lot of us are doing this through Zoom. So Dr. Lada has encouraged us tremendously, our little South Texas team here. And this is Adrian Mendoza, who is also one of our Sidelets consultants here on the right. So They have been so helpful in keeping me on track, keeping me motivated, and just giving each other feedback. So I highly encourage you to do that, both as a parent, both as an educator, as a friend, as a neighbor, porch drop-offs. Okay, my third idea is to host a morning meeting. And this came from another teacher friend of mine. I love picking my teacher friends' brains. And the idea was that students get so excited about seeing their teacher and seeing each other. So my own kids got to do this recently with one of their teachers, and they were so excited. And here are some ideas that you can do during your morning meeting. So you could play a game. There's a simple scavenger hunt idea. We actually played it with my kids and their cousins that are scattered around the world. Like, hey, go find a stuffed animal you can tell me about. Go find a shirt you've worn a couple times during the quarantine, and why do you wear it so often? Play Kahoot with your students online. You could try Goose Chase. This is a fun app that Adrian introduced me to, which is basically an online scavenger hunt, but it can be done during any period of time that is predetermined by the initiator of the game. You can post short videos, you can text, you can use sentence stems to have students respond. It's really fun and engaging. And also for you slightly competitive people out there, or you have students who are slightly competitive, there is a point system. So you can earn points. It's really fun. Sing a song with your students. Think about something that you think would interest them. Music is a huge motivator. Hey, when I want my kids to clean up, I either do time lapse on my camera or I put some music on. It motivates. I have a whole section in my book where I talk about how did I learn my second language of Spanish? I give a lot of credit to music. Shakira, Enrique Iglesias, I hung out with them a lot. Ana Gabriel, shout out to the Mexicanos out there. I listened to them a lot and I memorized the words and I looked at the lyrics and all the language learning that can be had for native English speakers and language learners or English language learners. So much language opportunity there with music. And then I have another idea here are read alouds. The power of read alouds are tremendous, even a very short amount. And I do this in person all the time when I'm coaching in schools. I ask teachers, what is a book that you could read aloud to your students that is connected to your content? And you might start with one that's not necessarily connected to your content. Just do a quick read aloud. I went online and found so many fun read alouds done by celebrities. So you can decide, do you think my students would respond more to me reading aloud or maybe another voice? I found Dolly Parton. I found Betty White read alouds. They're phenomenal. So lots of ideas out there. And then just finally, and most important, is know your audience. So all students are different. Some of you have students who are refugees, who have had interruptions to their formal education. If you want to know more about that, Carol has a whole book on that. It's incredible. If you have students that maybe came into your classroom that you're just getting to know, that's where the Cultivate part comes in. Try to get to know them. Ask them about, what's going on? What is it like for them? Try to find out about their family and their cultural background. Where do they live in your town? And the fourth idea I have for you is to encourage collaborative conversations. Anyone who has worked with me or been to one of my conferences knows that I'm a sentence stem junkie, as I like to say. And I think we all are really at Sidelets because we see the power behind providing sentence stems for our students. And this is the acronym that we usually use. It's called QSSSA. And I'm sorry if my face is covering up the assess part on yours. You can move me around if you need to. That's the final part. So question is, what is one thing you've been enjoying synchronously or asynchronously? So if you want to post on the chat, feel free to use this stem. I've been enjoying, what is something you've been enjoying? And if you're a teacher, you can talk about something through teaching, or if you're a quarantine parent, you can talk about something with your own kids or your family or someone you've been interacting with during this time. And then I would encourage you to comment on each other. So if you want to comment on at least, I said 2 on here. So read or comment on 2 classmates' responses. You can try to comment on someone else's in the chat, and I will be reading all of those later. And you can benefit from reading each other's right now. And then the assess part is when we usually randomize and we just pick, hey, Juan, I just read Juan's comment, and he was talking about how Julia was enjoying her asynchronous learning because she can take much more time to complete the task than she would be able to do during class. for example. Okay, so that's the QSSA. So you can pose, and there's actually a fantastic webinar done by Nancy Motley that you can find online if you go to sidelitseducation.com about asking better questions. So this is one way you can do that, ask better questions and really encourage those collaborative conversations. And then my fifth idea that I have for you is conduct mini conferences. So this is something I learned a while back as a maybe not so organized teacher. If anyone is on here who worked in a school where I worked, you would know that my strength was not organization. My strength was maybe making a cozy spot for kids to read, making my classroom inviting and fun and having class pets. But my strength was not always organization. So something that really helped me was starting to use spreadsheets and hold mini conferences with my students. And they don't have to be conferences where I'm talking to them live or I'm even talking to them by chat. They could just be, I checked in with that student. I asked them how it was going. I commented on their comment, or I commented on the work that they had posted. And then I checked off, or in this case, you might be able to see where I have 3-1. So I would write the date. Okay, this is when I talked to John. And John and I had this conversation. So then I would have a little anecdotal note. Okay, so Alan and I, sorry, I used the wrong name as an example here. Alan worked on stating a clear thesis to start his persuasive essay using a sentence stem that we provided in class. And then I checked back in later, he nailed it, he had it. Okay, so he definitely followed the directions, he was able to follow the example, and he was able to use the sentence stem. So I know if I'm looking the next day or the next week, I have checked in with Alan. Alan is good to go. And I don't want to leave him hanging. I don't want to wait too long to check back in with him, but I can easily go through my spreadsheet and see, ooh, there's 3 kids I have not checked in with, or you know what, they have not logged on in the last couple of days. Let me just send them a text, or let me send them a note, or maybe they need a packet. Maybe I need to deliver a packet to them. Maybe they don't have internet access right now, or they're just not able to share devices because there's so many siblings. Whatever it might be, going back to know your audience and cultivate those relationships. And this is a way to keep track of how well you're doing and who you need to check in with. I've used this from everything from students sharing in class, and when you go back to your live classroom, I encourage you to keep doing it because it's really easy to overlook those students. Sometimes it's the quiet, really compliant students that we accidentally overlook just because they're so well behaved. And sometimes it's those students who really need the attention, but we're not directing it where it needs to be directed. So it always helps keep me on track if I have a mini conference sheet. So we're going to go back to our content and language objectives and see what you think about these 5 different ideas. Were you able to think about these 5 ideas? Did you think about those keywords, cultivate and maintain? What is that going to look like for you going forth in the rest of this month and next month to retain, to cultivate and maintain those relationships with your online classroom? And then I want you to consider one activity that you would try, or maybe a really creative twist on one of the 5 ideas that you'd like to try or try again with your students. So here is your, just a recap of the 5 ideas. I can't wait to hear all your creative spins on these ideas. So here's your stem. In order to cultivate and maintain relationships, I would like to try, so you can go ahead and be adding those to the chat, and just know that it's worth your time to add them to the chat because I think hundreds maybe of people are going to see this. And even if they don't see it right now, they're going to see it later because we'll be posting this webinar. And you are sharing your ideas with other educators around the globe. So thank you so much for taking the time to write in your ideas. I'm going to let it linger over this for just 1 minute. And I'm going to quote Mother Teresa for you real quick. I'm just going to give you a quote. She has so many great quotes. In fact, one of my friends gave me a whole book of her quotes for my birthday last year. But she said, you know, your true character shines when you do things for people who you think cannot do anything for you. So there are some students that you saw, it was really challenging to cultivate a relationship with them earlier in the school year when we were meeting in schools. And this might even apply to parents. There's a child that you have at home that it's really challenging because you're in you might be in a new role now. You're not just the parent, but you are their first line of formal education even. So what are you going to be doing, and what are the positives that can come out of this? And how are you going to be helping those students, even if you don't feel like they'll ever be able to repay you? What can you pour into their bank and to help them feel positive and help those relationships really thrive. Because really the common denominator in all of our motivation is relationships. So I'm going to go ahead, and that was one of my, I think I paraphrased, so forgive my paraphrase there. Your true character is most accurately measured by how you treat those who can do quote unquote nothing for you, because we know that's not, it's they're not really doing nothing. We are learning, right? And please stay in touch. Here are some ways that you can stay in touch with us. And then I threw my email at the bottom if you want to email me any comments or questions. And I am going to throw it back to Carol and Valentina. Thank you so much for hosting with me.
Oh my goodness, we can't thank you enough. What a very powerful webinar about cultivating
Carol,
relationships
you might still be
online.
muted. Are you muted, Carol?
I think I'm
Did you
not.
pull Laura Beth?
So Valentina, did you want to talk about anything? Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, who knows?
I think it was me. I think it was me.
Valentina, did you want, thanks so much for being so interactive in the chat. Do you have anything to add?
Oh my goodness, Laura Beth, everyone is just feeling really validated and inspired by your message today. A lot of people shared that they really enjoyed building relationships through stories and sharing their own childhood stories. They shared how they are going to share more videos using platforms like Loom, Screencastify, Screencast-O-Matic. They love the idea of having accountability partners right now. That's something that they're going to try, and more read aloud. So just a lot of people chatting about new ideas that they feel really inspired to do, very practical and easy, but effective ideas.
Thank you so much for all your comments. I can't wait to read and learn from you.
It is fantastic. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. Thank you to the folks who are already tweeting out on Twitter with the hashtag SideLetsEdChat. And Dr. Escalante will be over there looking at your interaction there as well. Don't forget about some upcoming events that we have. Just in a few days, we'll be having another webinar with Anna Mattis and Elevation together. You can go to the Sidelets Education website and see under upcoming events the webinars we have coming up, and also watch the ones in replay like Dr. Escalante mentioned. So thank you to everyone. Thank you again, Dr. Escalante. We can't thank you enough. And
Have
so
a
we'll
wonderful day, everyone. Stay positive.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.